Bring it on. Want some, get some. Can I get a hell yeah? Yes, I am a pirate. You have to go with the Pirates because, of course, they have cannons and everything.
It's a pirate's life for me.
Be proud of who you are and what you are. You're a pirate.
It is a first down. Pirates.
Because when you're at East Carolina, you go for it every time. Or you don't coach at East Carolina, you don't come to East Carolina, you don't play at East Carolina with a weak heart. Write it.
I think I've ever been in a building as loud as that was. It was deafening in there.
You will get Omaha. I can promise you that. And it's purple all night long in Eastern North Carolina.
You're watching The Sports Objective, the podcast for Pirates.
Yeah. My heart is purple and gold. I'm a pirate down to my soul. And I don't back down, not at all. Find out when the cannons explode.
Welcome into TSO Sunday night here as we have a very special guest. We'll get to you in just a second with that. And a very special night. Kyle Barber, it's Sunday night. So if it's Sunday night, that means it's a sports objective.
Yeah, no doubt. As we sit here on a Sunday night, getting into late July, believe it or not, fall camp starts a week from Monday for the Pirates for the July 28th because of the Thursday night kickoff against NC State on August 28th. So it's coming a little earlier this year. It's hard to believe we're about a week away from fall camp. And no Matt Semeza tonight, no Stevie Fly. Stevie may join us a little later. Matt got caught up in traffic in Jersey and didn't want to do the podcast live via his car. So no Semeza tonight, but we do have the one and only Johnny Stats, Mr. Johnny Robertson, joining us. Johnny, what's going on, man?
Hey, good to be here, fellas. I'm sorry, I accidentally hit the mute button on my microphone. I'm happy to be here tonight, and Coach, it's great to be here. I'm happy to have you, and let's go.
All right. Welcome back to the show. Actually, we'll talk about his career at ECU as a player, coach a couple times, and now the current D-line coach in Missouri, and that is Coach David Blackwell. Coach, welcome back to the show. Glad to have you.
I appreciate it. It's great to be back.
Coach, yeah, Coach, we, you've been on before. I think it's been a couple years ago now. I'm going to kind of go start with the current and then work our way backwards. I know the pre-show I kind of said it was going to be the other way around, but so we'll start talking about Missouri, if you don't mind. Back-to-back 10-plus win seasons for the Tigers. You won 11 games in 23, 10 games in 24. Back-to-back bowl wins, winning the Cotton Bowl, Music City Bowl. So talk about the recent success for Missouri under Coach Drinkwitz.
I think Coach has done a great job just, before I got here of laying the foundation and building the program. And, when I got there 2 years ago, it was kind of similar to how we are right now going into this season. There were a lot of people weren't giving us a lot of credit, weren't expecting us to do a whole lot. We were picked, I think, 12th in the league. But we knew coming out of spring we had a really good football team. And it was proven out as the season went. We went, 11-2, beat Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl, and had a tremendous season, and we're a play or two away from being in the college football playoff. I mean, he took Georgia down to the wire, took LSU down to the wire, and this past season, kind of the same thing. We let one slip through our fingers at South Carolina that cost us a chance to play in the playoffs. So hopefully this year, we think we're flying under the radar a little bit. We lose Luther Burden, we lose a first-round pick, a second-round pick, 3-year starter at quarterback. So there's a lot of questions offensively. We've got a loaded defense coming back. And, so I think, again, we feel pretty confident coming into this season that we can make some noise in the SEC.
How tough is it, in the SEC, you're going to get some of the best offensive lines every week, and you're coaching the tackles there on the D-line. So how critical is it, I guess is the word I'm looking for, to make sure you're constantly bringing in top-tier defensive linemen, and how much of that at Missouri now is being done through the development of high school athletes, and how much of it's coming out of the portal?
We're about 50-50 high school and portal. I think you still have to have a base, and you still have to develop kids and build the bottom of your roster out to start with. And, so right now in the D-tackle room, we've got, kind of a blend about truly 50-50. We've got 10 guys in the room. I think there's 4 transfers and 6 high school guys that were grown up in the program. So, and that's kind of indicative of our team. I mean, I think everyone nowadays is, some teams are heavier than others leaning into the portal. And, I think we've done a good job of balancing that and keeping guys that, want to be a part of your program. And I think the biggest thing we've done a great job of as a staff and as a program is retention and keeping our guys, that we want to keep in the program, keeping them in the program.
Coach, yeah, it looks like Dave is gone for a minute. He will be back. I actually turned on my camera for a minute. I have no idea what came on my camera. I'm sitting here. I just got out of the shower, so I apologize if I didn't look. So I apologize. Anyway, yeah, off to a great start tonight. So yeah, the recent success of Missouri, obviously, the fan base has got to be excited with what's going on with back-to-back double-digit win seasons, and competing at a high level in the SEC. So just talk about that. What's the reaction been to the recent success? I think Missouri's had plenty of success over the years. Back in the day, in the Big 12, their early days in the SEC, they won the East a couple of times. So just how has the fan base how has the fan base reacted to the recent success?
It's been tremendous. I mean, we've sold out every home game the last 2 years, except for maybe the home opener a year ago. We currently got a stadium expansion going on the north end zone that'll be done for the 26th season. There's a lot of excitement around our program. We have an opportunity this season to do something that's never been done in the history of Missouri football, which would be 3 10-win seasons in a row. And that's obviously a great goal for our team and an opportunity to compete, obviously, in the SEC. One of the biggest things coming in for me, I've played a lot of SEC teams through the years. I spent 6 years at Clemson. I was 3 years at Pitt. We've played SEC teams before. The biggest difference, I think, when you really dig into the SEC is what you alluded to a few minutes ago. It's the offensive and defensive lines and the talent and the depth in the offensive and defensive lines. And it's just week in and week out. You don't get a break. Everyone's got good players up front. I think this season, going into the season, you see all the prognosticators and everybody talk about how easy our schedule is in the SEC. But, I mean, we've got the 20th ranked schedule in the entire country. And so, I mean, it's there's not an easy out. Vanderbilt's not an easy out. It's there's good teams all throughout this league, and I think we went to double overtime last year with Vanderbilt. So every week you've got to be ready to show up and play, and I don't think that's just our league. I think that's every league. I think the way college football is nowadays, there's parity and throughout college football, and there's parity in all leagues. And I think that when you look at, the American Conference, you got to show up every week or you're going to get knocked off.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's Division I college football, particularly now with NIL. Everybody's got players, and with the portal, nobody. If you don't have players, you probably didn't do your job in the portal. So there's a lot of parity in college football now. JR, did you go with Earnhardt to the Music City Bowl or no?
Yeah, I sure did. It was wow, what an experience that was. I wasn't quite as up close as Bubba and Matt were, but I was, I had pretty good seats, and it was one of the greatest finishes I've seen in person in a long time. Hey, fellas, I want to apologize. I was getting severe echo from YouTube and in this app, and I finally got out of that. So I apologize for that rough beginning, but I couldn't concentrate.
That's all right, JR. I got on camera half naked for so I don't know what anybody saw.
It was terrible. I couldn't even hear myself think. Anyhow, I had since we're in Missouri, can I throw a few Missouri questions, Coach?
Yeah,
sure,
JR, before you do that, I wanted to follow up with you. Now, you went with Earnhardt. I was talking about the Music City Bowl, not our bowl, not the Military Bowl.
Oh, yeah. No. I did not go to the Music City Bowl.
Okay, because I know Earnhardt left the Military Bowl, then went to the Music City, and I know you guys are close. So I wasn't sure if you went with him to watch Missouri
No,
also.
that was quite a voyage he went on. He went directly from Annapolis to Nashville, so it was crazy. I couldn't do that trip, so I was not in attendance.
All right. Go ahead with your questions for Coach.
I noticed I'm just going on snap counts from last year, and I'm projecting your starting defensive tackles as being Chris McClellan, Sterling Webb, and Marquise Gracio. And I guess, there's going to be some rotation there, but I'm guessing that Chris is going to be your main guy. I mean, he had 562 snaps last year, and he was 4th in stops in the SEC among defensive linemen last year and 8th in tackles. So I assume he's going to be a starter. And then will you have Sterling Webb or Marquise Gracio or a combination?
Yeah. Well, we have a huge competition. We've got 7 out of our top 8 coming back from last year at defensive tackle. And we lost Christian Williams to the Denver Broncos, who was a tremendous player for us. And as you mentioned, Chris McClellan was a starter last year. He's one of the top playmakers in the SEC, and we've got him back for his senior year. And we're expecting him to take another step and to really move into that elite status of a guy that can compete for all SEC honors and can compete at the highest level and hopefully be a high draft pick in the NFL. And then, who the starter is next to it, it's wide open. We've got, as you mentioned, Marquise Gracio. Played about 150 snaps a year ago, had an injury early in the year that kind of limited him. He would have probably played a lot more. We're really excited about the offseason he's had. He's got his weight down. When I got to Missouri, he was about 340 pounds. He's about 318 pounds now, and I mean, really moving well. Chris is about 325 pounds. Sterling is the small guy. He's 290 pounds. We have a transfer we brought in that was starter at Ohio University, Braylon Henderson, that we expect him to compete in that mix. He had a really good year last year at Ohio. And then we have some young guys coming through our program. Jalen Marshall is another 325-pound guy. A guy named Elias Williams that is a freshman that we redshirted that we really are really high on, that we think he's got a great upside. So, we feel really good. I mean, we got 7 out of 8 back that played last year. We added 1 transfer, and then, when you compare that with our edges, we feel like we have maybe, if not the top edge defensive end room in the college football, one of the top 4 or 5. So, our defensive end room is loaded. So, defensively, I mean, we feel really good about our front 7.
Awesome. Hey, one thing I love about your defensive tackles, you got a couple 325 guys and a 290 guy, but they're numbers 7, 10, and 33. I love that.
Those guys nowadays
makes them look faster.
Yeah, you don't see the D tackles going out there wearing 75 anymore or 64. Or, those guys they think they're skill guys, and Chris especially, he wears number 7, but Chris is our he's a big guy that dresses like a little guy, and he's really into dressing for game day, things like that. But we give him a hard time about it. But he's been a great player for us, and hopefully he'll continue to be.
Yeah. So you're running a 4-2-5, right, at Missouri?
Yes, we base out of a 4-2-5 with 2, with a 4 down front, similar to what I did as coordinator at ECU. Yeah.
Yeah, but you've been running like the 3-4 the last few years, so it's not a big adjustment to make at all.
No, you can move in and out of it, and that was one of the things we did is we evolved it. At Old Dominion was, we ran a lot more 3-man front than what we did at ECU, and same thing when I was with Skip at La Tech. We evolved to a lot more 3-man front, but everybody's doing kind of the same thing nowadays. Just how they get to it might be a little different. The letters they draw on the board are a little bit different. They may call the guy an outside backer, and we call him a defensive end. Yeah.
Hey, before we close out on Missouri, how about your schedule? First 6 games at home, 8 of the first 10 at home. I mean, I haven't seen that before. I don't think that's a nice luxury to have.
8 of the first 10 at home. Good God.
Yeah, we go. We've got a unique schedule. We go 6 at home. We go 5 straight, then have an open date. Play number 6, which is Alabama at home, and then we're 2 on the road, and then 2 at home, and then finish with 2 on the road. So, it's definitely a schedule that, you feel good about. We've got South Carolina at home. We've got Alabama at home. We've got Texas A&M at home. We go on the road to Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Auburn and Vanderbilt. So I think when you look at teams that are highly ranked and things like that, obviously Alabama, Texas A&M, South Carolina are all teams that we got coming into our stadium, the sold-out environments. And game number 2 against Kansas at home is a big one because that's a rivalry game that has not been played since we were in the Big 12. So it's there'll be a lot of emotions for that one.
Is there one more question about Missouri? Is there any, obviously the fans are going to love being in the SEC because it is the SEC, and financially, there's no better place to be. But how much, you got Texas over there now, of course, Arkansas, Oklahoma. But is there any, longing for the Kansas games, the Nebraska games, et cetera?
Oh, I think there is within the fan base. I do think that, we've been in the SEC long enough now where we've created some natural rivalries. I mean, the South Carolina game's a big game for us. It's gotten pretty heated. Coach Drinkwitz lost for the first time as a head coach against South Carolina last year on a 2-minute drive. Excuse me. Arkansas is a border state and another natural rivalry game that we've kind of developed. And, we don't have them on the schedule right now, but the Tennessee game has been a big game for us. Kentucky has been another one. So I think as the years have gone, we've developed a lot of natural rivalries within the SEC. I think as a program and as a university, we're very happy in the SEC. I do think there is a segment of the fan base that longs, as most fan bases do, for the old days of college football. But, unfortunately, you've got to move forward and you got to have blinders on a little bit and not look back. The fans can look into the past as coaches and universities and programs. You have to look forward, and you got to position yourself to be in the best position moving forward for the next era of college football.
Hey, one more Missouri question before we get out. Who gave the defense, death row defense? Was that there in 23, or was it?
It was there. It was there when I got there. I think that was one of the things Coach Drinkwitz brought in with him when he got the head job from Appalachian State. Was kind of nicknames for the offense, the defense, and they were trying to come up with a nickname for the defense, and actually I believe the corners coach, Al Pogue, our corners coach, came up with death row defense, and it kind of stuck. The players liked it, and the moniker kind of stuck. And then when Blake Baker left to go to LSU as coordinator, we kept the name and just kept it going. Said, hey, we've got a copyright on the name; it's our name. So,
oh, good for you.
But it's kind of a moniker. We all have. Our defensive ends room is called Sack Ave, hashtag Sack Avenue. The D tackle room is called the Trench Mob. It's our wide receiver room has been for a long time. Our wide receiver coach, Jacob Peeler, coined the phrase NWO, nasty wideouts. They even have a belt. It's pretty cool. Hulk Hogan has shouted them out on Twitter and things like that. It's been pretty cool. So we kind of have fun with that stuff. The players have fun with it, and create T-shirts, things like that. And so it's been fun.
You got death row defense, and you got the NWO. I was gonna ask you, with you guys being the death row defense, does that make Coach Drinkwitz Suge Knight? But then you brought in the NWO, and I want to know now. You mentioned Hogan. Hogan. So Eli. So is Eli Hogan, and then the DC and OC, is that Hall and Nash?
I don't know, but it's definitely a lot of fun.
Coach, I had a question regarding a former coach of the SEC. We heard at Media Days this week about Nick Saban maybe coming back to coaching, and I think that's a lot of media hype. We have to have something to talk about this time of year. So do you think Coach will come back? He's got a great gig on game day, and he's making a lot of money. He's with, I guess, Miss Terry Moore. Now it seems like he would have a better gig, and he's already – what else would he have to prove?
Well, I think obviously I can't speak for Nick Saban, and I don't really know Coach Saban very well. We've met, but he's not somebody that I'm talking to on a regular basis by any stretch. So I think in my sense, it'd be just speculation, just like anybody else. I do think, having been out for a season before, I think sometimes with coaches, when you're out of the actual coaching part of it, you do miss it. And I do think there's probably, as long as he's been doing it and at the level he's done it at and the success he's had, that, there's a part of him probably misses coaching. But obviously at the end of the day, the media is going to speculate. I think anytime coaches retire, especially successful coaches retire, there's always going to be speculation about whether or not they want to get back in it. So, and I think a lot of it will, there's only one person that can truly answer that, and that's him,
Yeah.
Johnny.
Saban, to follow up on the Saban stuff, Dave, Saban and Tommy Tuberville had the meeting with President Trump about, trying to get this whole NIL stuff a little bit less Wild West, and the model is changing a little bit. We're going to revenue sharing, and now anything over is 600 has to be approved by a clearinghouse.
Mm-hmm.
How do you see the change in the financial model going to revenue sharing and kind of getting away from what we have been doing NIL the last couple of years? Do you think that's going to kind of I don't what's the word I'm looking for? Calm things down a little bit, make things a little bit more sane, or do you think it's just going to be more of the same?
I think it definitely will calm things down a little bit. I really do. I think number one, you've put a salary cap on, and so I mean, as you read across the country, most team or major conferences, it looks like, are giving, somewhere in the neighborhood of $13 to $14 million to football, and 6, 7, whatever it is, to men's basketball and women's basketball, and then splitting the rest up is kind of the model you see, written out publicly by most places. That's one of the things here that, fortunately as assistants, we're kind of kept out of all that stuff. It's not something we need to know or care to know. Sometimes less is more, and obviously you don't want that kind of stuff out public. But I think there's probably the most, you've seen those numbers. So when you start looking at, there's teams around the country right now, they're spending an awful lot of money on high school recruiting that, come December, because those contracts run July to July, are they going to have money left for the portal? And so that's one of those things you have to balance, is your roster. And, I think you're going to start seeing people go to more of an NFL style where there's going to be positions that are valued more than other positions. I think that's already starting to happen. I think everyone's going to feel their way through it here this first couple of years, and then they'll hopefully settle down a little bit. I don't think what we've done the last couple of years is sustainable long term with the amount of money that, some teams are throwing around and spending, and, the boosters and things like that. You keep dipping into those wells, eventually they're going to say no, And so I think, I definitely think that it puts a cap on it and streamlines it a little bit. It's going to be very interesting to see with the clearinghouse or the deal they have that is approving the NIL deals where, a straight, collective paying a player, having him tweet some stuff out about season tickets, things like that. It's probably not, obviously it's not going to fly anymore. And the amount of money that some of these collectives were paying out. So, I think it will streamline it. I think we're probably, there's going to be more lawsuits. I mean, I think it's still a very fluid situation. And so sometimes it's nice to be an assistant and just coach your position, not worry about that stuff.
Yeah, I think at some point I'd love to see the cap even a little lower personally, being an East Carolina fan, but I don't know that that's going to happen. I would love to see these players when they're receiving revenue sharing, or any kind of NIL deal. I'd love to see a 2-year commitment out of these guys. So, you don't, particularly somewhere like East Carolina, where you get a guy who comes in, has a breakout year, and the next thing you know, he's headed to an SEC school. I'd love to see these guys have to sign like coaches have to sign contracts.
Yeah.
Love to see these players have to sign contracts.
Well, and I think a lot of people are doing that, especially at the Power 4 level. They're signing multi-year contracts with large buyouts, and to top players, the guys that have earned the money, have proven on the field, that kind of thing. But I think, again, it's a fluid situation. I think there's a lot of people that don't like seeing players making the kind of money they're making in college and those kind of things. And, the toothpaste is out of the tube, and it's one of those things where you've got to adjust or you're not going to survive. And so it's, whether you like it or not, it's the reality we're living in right now. And there's an awful lot of money that is made by college football. And for years and years and years, the players were cut out of it. And so, there's that side of it. So, I think there's a happy medium somewhere. I'm not smart enough to know where that is. As coaches, we this is what the rules are, and let's operate within the rules and do the best we can. And we've got a head coach that's very forward thinking and does a tremendous job handling that stuff and really shields us from it. So, and that's the big thing, is, honestly, even in my room, I've got 10 players in my room. All 9 out of 10 are getting NIL. I could not tell you what each one of them was making. And that's by design, and that's kind of how we do things. And so it shields me. I'm sure there's guys in the room probably making more money than I am,
I was just thinking that, Coach.
That's the world we live in, So it's a different era. Not everybody likes it. We can complain about it. It's kind of like, I used to say when I was at ECU, it's easy to bitch about what we don't have, but let's brag about what we do have. And, there's too many people like to bitch about what you don't have. And so, I still think at the end of the day, you got to sell what you do have, and you got to recruit well, and you got to build a program.
Coach, I wanted to ask you a question about a non-Missouri question, but again, this is the first, you were talking about the playoffs, so made me think about a question for you. What do you think about the first year of having 12 teams this year? A lot closer than what I want than the 4 teams, but do you guys at Missouri, I know that would definitely help you guys out this year for sure. Compared to
this past season, we were, really 2 years in a row, we've been right there. We were, we finished number 9 in the nation 2 years ago. We had LSU on the ropes at our place, and Jaden Daniels, tremendous athlete, tremendous player. Quarterback got loose, and he got loose and hurt us. And, we defensively kind of gave that game up, and then at Georgia, it was a heavyweight fight, and we ended up losing the game in the fourth quarter, by 6 points or whatever it was. And it was a tremendous game. It was a great atmosphere. It was a fun game on the road, but we came up just a little bit short, and we had a lot of opportunities to win that game. And you win either one of those games 2 years ago, and you're in the 4-game playoff. And this year, the South Carolina game really, we didn't, we lost our quarterback second quarter of Alabama game. Second half, the game got away from us. We didn't show up and play well against LSU. And, but it still came down. We've got a lead with a minute left in the game against South Carolina, and defensively we give up a 2-minute drive. And that keeps us out of the playoffs. So that's something that eats at me. It eats at all of us as a coaching staff. And, we've been right there 2 years in a row. And we think we've got a team this year that can compete for it again.
And Coach, you're right there with Missouri. What do you think is missing? You guys have got great facilities. You've got your SEC. You've got great coaches like yourself. What is the one thing, maybe an intangible? Is there anything that's missing that you can say? I know it's hard to say, but is there anything you guys see that this is the difference between making the playoff and not making the playoff?
Well, I think last year especially, staying healthy. Our quarterback was banged up most of the year, and Brady really wasn't healthy again down the stretch until the bowl game. And, I think that hurt us a lot offensively, and then, you got to close out games, and that's the thing. And again, it's not just an SEC thing, but, you got to show up every week, and that was the thing. We lose a game at home to LSU by 3 points. We lose to Georgia at Georgia by, 29-21 or whatever it was, on the road last year. This year, we no-showed Texas A&M, got run off the field and didn't deserve to win the game, But the South Carolina game was a back-and-forth game that we had every opportunity to win. And so, I think it's more frustrating when you're really close than it is when you're far away. I think when you're far away, you kind of sit back and you look at it and you say, okay, what do we have to do to close the gap? We've closed the gap. Now we got to figure out how to kick the door in. And we've been a game away 2 years in a row. And so that's one of the things that I think, we've got to find a way to, in a competitive environment. 2 years ago, if it was a 12-team playoff, we were easily in, Last year with a 12-team playoff, we were one of the 2 or 3 first teams left out, and so, I think it's, you got to be a little bit lucky, but you got to create your own luck too. But anytime you're a part of those special seasons, I mean, shoot, we won 11 games 2 years ago when I was at ECU. We won 11 games as a player. I've been a part of, 11 win seasons at Jacksonville State and at Fordham. And, the thing about all those teams, you find a way to win when you don't play your best. And, those games where you stumble a little bit, or maybe you're not as sharp, you still find a way to win those games. And that was the story of that, 91 team at ECU was we won close games that were low scoring. We won high scoring close games. We won with blowouts. We won every way you could win. We won with special teams. I mean, it was a team that found ways to win games and stayed in the fight. And I think that's when you have those special seasons, you got to be able to do that.
You mentioned the 91 season, Coach, and we'll go ahead and get into East Carolina. First, I wanted to talk about you talk about the 12-team playoff. This is going to be year number 2 of the 12-team playoff, and what the 12-team playoff does provide. It's going to give a spot every year to the supposed group of 5. You're going to have one spot. The 5 highest ranked conference champions do get in the playoffs, and that's going to include one, soon to be group of 6 with the return of the Pac-12. Last year was Boise State. I feel like East Carolina should be in that conversation with winning the American every year. And I won't get into it with you about our administration, and I think their lack of I don't know the word I'm looking for. I just don't think they believe that we can do it like the previous administrations have. But you were here in 18, and it was a lot of turmoil during that time in leadership. You here under Scotty Montgomery, you did a great job with the defense. Nate Harvey, good God, I wish he would have been a defensive end more than one season. But just big picture, you were a Pirate. You were part of it in 91. You see what we have. You've been at other Group of 5 institutions, Old Dominion, Louisiana Tech. In your opinion, is there any reason East Carolina shouldn't be one of the top teams at the Group of 5 level?
Oh, I think absolutely. I believed that when I was there with Scotty. I talked about there's no reason we can't do what Central Florida had done. You can't just speak it into existence. You've got to go out and do it. You still have to build the program. You still have to do the things. Everywhere has its scabs. There's no perfect job. And so there's a lot of exciting things happening at East Carolina. I mean, you got a big-time stadium. You have a beautiful university. It's a large university. You have a tremendous fan base. People are passionate about it. It is obviously a great community to live in. You're in what is considered to be, if not the best Group of 5 conference in the country. It's right there with the Mountain West with Boise State. And so I think there's obviously, you just broke ground on an indoor facility. There's a lot of exciting things happening. there's a lot of positive things about the program, and I think that's the beauty of college football right now, because there's no reason why anyone can't kick the door down and go do it, you know. And I always felt like we had advantages at ECU with our fan base, the passion. When you drive up from the outside to that stadium, you feel like you're at a Power 4 school. I mean, the university itself, driving around campus, driving around town, it has every bit of a big-time feel as any Power 4 conference that you have. My wife was here this past – I still have a house in Greenville.
Oh, wow.
My wife and son live in Brook Valley. You know, my wife was here this past weekend, and we were trying to buy a housewarming gift for one of our new coaches, and we were going around to all the stuff buying Mizzou stuff, and I was like, you know, it's amazing. You go to, you know, to Academy Sports, you go to, you know, to Walmart, you go to all these places, and I'm like, dude, you go to ECU, and there's ECU stuff everywhere. You can buy it anywhere.
Yep.
And I'm like, we're an SEC school, and I'm going around town yesterday looking for stuff at stores, you know, and it's amazing to me, you know. But I mean, that tells you a lot about your program, and you know, so I do believe that you can. There's no question that ECU can build a program that's capable of competing at the highest level, and also can compete to be in the playoffs. There's that door's there for everyone, and it doesn't just mean Boise State. I mean, you know, now there've been ups and downs through the years, and I still believe. I honestly believe the year I was there. I mean, we had so much turmoil off the field.
Right.
You know, that fed over to the field. I mean, it was just the environment was toxic around the program. The fan base was still so upset over Ruffin McNeil, and there was so much going on behind the scenes, and it was just a hard environment. And to this day, and it's not something that makes a lot of people happy at ECU, but I have an awful lot of respect for Scotty Montgomery. I thought Scotty was recruiting at a really high level. I thought we were bringing really good young players into that football program. I think it was proven out with what Mike Houston was able to do a couple of years later with a majority of kids that were recruited by our coaching staff. And, you know, but the environment around the program, I don't think was good. And I think it has improved. You know, I know I can't speak to administration, things like that. I don't know. You know, I'm not privy to a lot of that stuff, but I do know that what we walked into that year in 2018 was rough from, you know, just the climate around the program. And I thought as a coaching staff, it was a tough year. I mean, obviously we should have won more games. With the North Carolina A&T game was never a game that ever should be lost at ECU. It should not have been lost by us. That's something that all of us had to own. You go out the next week and beat the brakes off of North Carolina, and that's unfortunately, you know, why we weren't there, because we weren't consistent enough. And you know, you should have beat South Florida. You know, we had a lot of opportunities that year to turn the corner. I do believe, you know, had we been given another year, I do think, especially defensively, we would have made a huge jump, because I thought we'd already made a big jump that year. We didn't finish well down the stretch. I think that we would have made another big jump, but that's neither here nor there. The decision was made, and everybody moved forward, you know.
Coach, I had a question about you were talking about the indoor practice facility, and I remember when you were there and Coach Montgomery, after a practice, talking about how that particular summer, being fall camp, you guys missed something like, or maybe it was some of the practices into the regular season, 9 practices because of storms. Can you talk about the importance? I know it's important. I mean, we've had a heat wave like you would not believe here in the Greenville area, over 100 degrees, and a real feel like 107, 108.
The hottest summer consistently that I can remember.
Yeah, Kyle is actually the staff meteorologist for our show, but so I hope you were impressed by that, Kyle. But anyway, can you talk about the importance of an indoor practice facility? We talk about on the show, we don't think it's as much as a recruiting tool now, but it will help you get in all the practices that you need.
Well, I think that's obviously for coaches, number one, is the ability to not have to cancel practice because of weather. I think number two, it's a status symbol. I do think it may not help you in recruiting, but it'll sure hurt you in recruiting when you don't have one, because there's a lot of Group of Five schools that aren't considered at ECU's level that have them.
Yep.
And they don't, and that's not a good thing. South Alabama has one. UAB has one. Louisiana Lafayette has one. And so when these kids go visit those programs, they're impressive facilities when you walk inside them. I mean, we had a function last night in our indoor facility here in Missouri. We had a booster function that, they put a floor down, put lights up. I mean, it was impressive. I mean, we had a 5-star dinner inside of an indoor facility with fans and air conditioning. I mean, it's climate controlled, video boards. I mean, it's impressive. So I do think it's still a huge recruiting tool from a standpoint of when you don't have one, kids notice and they think you're low rent. And that's the reality of college football. If you don't have an indoor facility, you are considered a program that does not care about your football program. And that has been what coaches have complained about for years and years and years at ECU. People don't understand the dynamics of just how it looks from a recruiting standpoint. It's not going to truly help you get players, but it'll hurt you when you don't have one.
Yeah, it's something we should have had years ago. I think too much money was spent on a press box that could have been spent elsewhere to benefit, and I think at the time it would have helped even more with recruiting because this is before NIL. One facility,
Sure.
Facilities still matter, but, I think even more back then. But, you talk about the 2018 season, the turmoil that was around, you knew what was going on, obviously, with people were angry over Ruffin being fired. Jeff Comfer had came in and caused a lot of turmoil as athletic director. And then we had a lot of people here who did not like Cecil Staten. There was a lot of things that were bigger than the football program, but it kind of all manifested itself in the football program because it's the front porch of the university. That 2018 season, you talk about the A&T game and what a disappointment that was. Come back the next week and manage to beat North Carolina and have a great moment, for East Carolina fans. Nate Harvey as a defensive. Talk about that. Talk about Nate a little bit. He came here as a running back. God almighty, him only getting 1 year at defensive end is a shame.
Oh, it was it's funny. We're going through off-season workouts in February, and honestly, I give David Mackey, one of our analysts, credit. David recruited Nate, got him to walk on from Georgia Military, and he was on me all the time about it. This guy can play, man. He's sitting over there. He can't do any, and so we get out there in winter workouts, and I'm running drills, and he comes through my drills, and I'm like, good Lord, this dude's dynamic, and so I finally went in at the end of workouts, talked to Coach Montgomery, and was just like, hey, could we, does he figure into your plans on offense? And he was like, no, not really. Right now he's, kind of buried. And, so I was like, well, what do you think about taking a look at him at linebacker? And so we tried him in the spring at middle linebacker. And, the things that you saw were just his effort, intensity, physicality. But linebacker was a tough transition for him. He got better and better as we went, but I'm sitting there going, Central Florida had, and I cannot remember the kid's name, but the kid that had one hand that was an All-American, undersized, just a jet off the edge. And I was like, you know what, during the summer, I said to Rod Wright and to Coach Mo, I said, what do y'all think about trying Nate at defensive end in the fall? Just letting him go, not think, just go, be aggressive, and everybody kind of agreed that it was worth taking a look at. And obviously we weren't smart enough to do it sooner, because he proved me right, proved a lot of people right. And, had he been 2 inches taller or 3 inches taller, he'd still be playing. He was a tremendous football player, and he earned everything he got that season. He led the nation in tackles for loss. He was top 5 in the nation, I think, in sacks. I mean, as a defense that year, we were 3rd in the nation in tackles for loss. We were 15th in the nation in sacks. We were 3rd in the nation in forced 3 and outs. And, coming from a defense that the year before was obviously the worst defense in college football in pretty much every statistical category. We did a lot of really positive things, but at the end of the day, you got to win football games, and that's what we did not do. And it starts with the A&T game as a game that we let slip away, and then the Tulane game down there where I think defensively we played a great football game, and we gave up three RPO glances for touchdowns at safety position that, number one, we can't allow that to happen as players and coaches. Number two, as a coordinator, when it happens once, you correct it. When it happens twice, you got to get out of the coverage, and that was my fault. To be stubborn and stay in quarters and stay in an open middle when that was all they had that hurt us. The whole game really was those three plays, which cost us the game, and so that still eats at me to this day.
The one game that I really remember from that season on a positive note, the ODU game. Pirates lead the game most of the game. Old Dominion takes the lead late. Pirates come down, kick a field goal, take the lead. ODU gets the ball back with about a minute to go. And you guys, there's no prevent. Y'all prevented them from scoring by blitzing the hell out of them. And it was just a relentless pressure on that last drive. And there should have been, I can't remember who got was it a fumble? Somebody didn't get credited with a touchdown at the end of that game. Do you remember that?
I do, and I cannot remember who it was. That game was a good game, obviously, for my future because it got me hired at Old Dominion because Coach Wilder knew the history behind our defense at ECU. And, the week before we played them, they had beaten Virginia Tech at Virginia Tech and had thrown for 400 and something yards and had put up 40-some points. And, we held them to like 250 yards and we sacked them 10 times. And it was, really our defensive front really dominated that game from an up front standpoint. And that was a fun game. I have obviously East Carolina means an awful lot to me. I still have a house there. My family's still there. I've got an apartment up here. My wife comes up a good bit. My son does not come up very much anymore. He finished up at Conley and he's been at Pitt Community College and, Greenville's, he considers Greenville his home. And that was the thing when we got let go at La Tech. He'd been to 3 high schools and he really didn't want to start over again. So I said, where do you want to go? Where do you want to live? And he said, I want to go back to Greenville. I want to go back to ECU. That's, where he wanted to be. And so we moved back there, and then I took the job up here and my family's been there, since then. So I've been, my wife was here this past weekend. She'll come up for, probably out of the 8 home games, she'll be here for about 6 of them. She works, she works at Grover Gaming. I guess it's, it's not Grover Gaming anymore. I think it's, they've changed the name. But, he's obviously a former ECU basketball player. Garrett is. Yep. And, so she's around a lot of ECU people. And, it's just that community and that university is very special to me.
How often do you come back to Greenville yourself with your wife?
Shoot, I was there for the last 3 weeks.
Oh, really? I did not realize that.
I was there. During the spring, I get back a lot. I come back about, I'm there over spring break. I usually come back at least once a month during the spring after the season. I was there, the past 3 weeks. Now we went to Nags Head. We went to Atlantic Beach. We kind of took advantage of being close to, some tremendous vacation places, but I still, I go to Parker's Barbecue. And
I was going to ask that question.
I go to Parker's and I actually had Parker's last week, and I go to Parker's, I'll hit Sam Jones and, I got places that I like to eat there that I like to go and things like that. And it's funny because, the first year or so we were back, I got a grocery store, be it a restaurant. Now I've been gone longer. I don't get recognized quite as much, or people just don't bother me as much. And not bother me, but don't come over and say hello as much as they have in the past. So, I think my wife probably enjoys that more than someone coming over and talking football at dinner or whatever it is. But, we've obviously the place means a lot to us, and we're still there. And I was there last week. I was actually texting out back with Eddie Crabtree about trying to do lunch and just didn't get hooked up.
What's your relationship like with the current East Carolina staff, Coach Harrell, et cetera? Do you how many of those guys do you know?
I know Blake really well. He and I've gotten to kind of know each other pretty well. I think he does a good job. I mean, does a great job defensively, obviously. Coach Shankweiler's still there, who recruited me and coached me as a player. I actually saw Shank at the liquor store. So he probably wouldn't want me saying that.
Breaking news.
I saw him in the grocery store. But, I do stay in touch with a lot of those guys. I know Josh Aldridge, the defensive coordinator, pretty well. He was at West Georgia as a D-line coach when I was the D coordinator at Jacksonville State. He used to come over and visit with us all the time.
Talk about Coach Aldridge a little bit, if you will.
A really smart football coach. I think he's got a lot of energy. I think he's kind of a hard-nosed guy. Really, really good fundamental teacher. He's a D-line coach. Was really impressed with him when I was around him. I know he's got a great reputation. Our defensive coordinator here at Missouri, Corey Batoon, and he worked together at Liberty. And so I've got a lot of ties to him through a lot of people I know. And the defensive coordinator at SMU worked with him, and we're close. And so, there's a lot of, Scott Simons at SMU. Those guys are kind of all plugged in together, and I've spent some time with Josh through the years, so know him pretty well, and I think he's a really good coach.
Excellent. So, we're going to start wrapping it up. Promise we won't keep you too much longer, but we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about a couple more things. You mentioned the 91 season briefly. You were an offensive lineman on that team. Talk about, everybody talks about the 91 season because it's still, and hopefully one day it will get topped. It's still the greatest season in ECU history. 11-1, finished 9th in the country, won the Peach Bowl, beat NC State. Everybody knows all the stories that they've been talked about ad nauseum. But just what are your memories of that 91 season?
Well, I remember the excitement coming into it. We knew as a team that we were going to be pretty good. And I think there was, it was before BCS, it was before Power 4, Power 5, all that stuff that's going on. And we played a really competitive schedule. I mean, you got South Carolina, West Virginia, Pitt. There's, all these Syracuse. ECU has never been afraid to play people, and that was one of the things that when I was recruited there that I was attracted to was Florida State, Miami, Auburn. The teams that were on the schedule, we were an independent and we were proud of it, but we knew going into the season we were going to be pretty good. Unfortunately for me, I got injured during fall camp, and thought it was going to be a short-term thing, was excited. I'd played a pretty good bit the year before and really had worked myself into a chance to really play a lot. And, you don't expect to hear that it's over, at that age. And you kind of feel like you're kind of invincible as a player. And all of a sudden you have a neck injury and it's a lot worse than what you think it is and what you feel like it is. And so that was tough. That was a tough thing for me. And so it was a weird season for me because obviously it's a historic season, and to navigate that season injured and, kind of halfway not feeling like you're a part of it, halfway feeling like you are, and really struggling, honestly, off the field. Grades slipped, was depressed a lot, obviously got into the nightlife pretty heavy, which is easy to do around there. And honestly, Jeff Connors, our strength coach, I owe a lot to where I am to Jeff Connors. He jerked a knot in me. He was a tough love kind of guy. And he called me in his office and just sat me down and chewed me out and told me to get my head out of my, out of my rear and quit pouting and made me work in the weight room. He made me go to work in the weight room, and he gave me, hours that I had to be there, and he would come find me if I wasn't there. And he checked up on my grades and really, put me to work and kind of drug me out of being, depressed and upset because I couldn't play anymore. And obviously from a season standpoint, I mean, just being on the sidelines, and, when you beat South Carolina and, obviously the Pitt game, and, there's just so many, the Virginia Tech game that season. And, the resiliency of that team just finding a way to win the football game. It was one week the defense, the next week Jeff Blake and the offense bailing us out. And, but that's what great teams do. Great teams find a way to win when they don't play their best. And every team that wins the national championship, you will look at their schedule and you'll find one or two games where they found a way to win and somehow pulled it out. And I think you look at Ohio State this past year with Penn State, they lose at Oregon, there was a lot of uncertainty, around their program, around their team, the Michigan game. I mean, it was, and then they go win the national championship, they get hot and they go do it, But I think that team will always be special to people. And some of the best memories I have playing and coaching. I mean, shoot, I got right into coaching after that as a student assistant. I mean, I remember beating Syracuse at Syracuse and South Carolina at South Carolina, and coming back to the parking lot, and you couldn't get in the parking lot. The buses couldn't get in the parking lot. There were so many people there waiting on us, and or coming back through the airport, and you couldn't, they brought you through the terminal after those big wins because the fans were there, and it makes that a really special place. And that was one of the things that I think through the years, I don't think that we've lost it at ECU. We got to give the fan base a reason to do that again. And I think that's something that was really special at my time at ECU was coming back after those big wins over teams that, maybe everyone except the people at ECU thought you couldn't win those games, and you did. And so that was obviously a really special season, but man, there's a lot of them. I mean, shoot, we beating Stanford in the Liberty Bowl, I mean, I got a lot of great memories from that place. So it's still obviously very special to me and always will be.
95, beating Stanford in the Liberty Bowl, finished ranked in the top 25. You were a student assistant on that staff. Talk about that season a little bit.
Oh, it was it was kind of a little bit of a roller coaster. I think we had a really good team that, probably record-wise could have been better than what we ended up, but we really finished on a high note. That was obviously Todd Berry was taking the Illinois State job, and I knew I was leaving after the bowl game to go with him. I was a student assistant, but for, really since 93, I had coached the outside linebackers at ECU. And so I was actually coaching my own position as a student assistant. When Larry Courier got hired as a defensive coordinator in 1993, he wanted to walk around, and so I took his position. He taught me what he wanted me to do, and as a young, really student, I was just done out of playing. I mean, it was a great opportunity for me. And then over those next several years under Paul Jett, I continued to kind of grow as a coach, but I really, in 93, excuse me, 93, 94, and 95, I actually coached my own position there and had my own meeting room. And Coach Logan gave me an awful lot of responsibility, and it's something I'll forever be grateful for him for, was, believing enough in me to allow me as a young coach to handle a lot of responsibility. And, and to go win that game. It was a weird Liberty Bowl because Todd and I knew we were leaving, and, we were excited. You're part of it, but there was that part of us that you had one foot in the door, one foot out the door, heading to Illinois State. And so, it was a kind of bittersweet to win that game. I got a picture, got a game ball that's signed by the players, and, really some special people on that team, and, a lot of fun.
Chad Holcomb had one hell of a game that day.
He did. There were a lot of guys that was really, really fun game, because I think Stanford kind of looked down on us going into the game, and, kind of irritated a lot of people, and to go out and win that game was big.
Hey, Coach, I had a quick question. I know Johnny has one as well, but I want to throw this one in because you talked about being there at East Carolina during that time. One of our co-hosts, our fellow guys, is stuck in traffic, and he won't be able to defend himself. So we thought we would ask, can you give us, we're at an hour, can you give us a Semenza story without hurting him too bad? We'll go a little bit. I'm in a good mood. We're going to go light on him tonight, if possible.
I'm going to be honest with you. My memories of Matt were all very positive. Extremely hard worker, great practice player. Was a guy that was physical, tough, hard-nosed, and honestly, I would have a hard time coming up with something funny or negative about him. I mean, he was a kind of a guy that dotted the I's, crossed the T's. I think he did have a little bit of fun off the field, but I wasn't going out with the players at that time, so I don't know that. So, I think obviously Greenville's a place where a lot of guys had fun off the field, myself included, so.
Yeah, people asked me in 2018, what kind of guy were you? And when we were covering the team, and that was our first season covering ECU football at the start of our podcast that previous spring in March. But I told him you were the kind of, I know it's a cliche, you're the kind of guy that you go out and drink a beer with. You were very sincere. You were very honest with the media. I thought that was one of the good things I will say about Coach Montgomery. He gave us full access, and I've told people that. Professionally, he gave us access to all the coaches, as many players as possible.
I've always believed, and it was kind of growing up as an Alabama fan and a Bear Bryant fan, and being around Coach Ford as a young kid. My father and Coach Ford at Clemson were really close, and it was the under promise, over deliver, and call it like it is. People aren't dumb, and I think coaches sometimes try to talk themselves out of trouble and create more trouble for themselves. Mm-hmm. Whereas, we went up against Temple that year and got our tails kicked. We didn't show up and we didn't play well. And we were feeling good about ourselves coming off the ODU game. We had played South Florida really close down there, should have won the game. We had beaten North Carolina. We were kind of feeling pretty like, hey, we got this thing turning. And I think we went up there arrogant and we got our asses kicked. And I said it. I said it point blank after the game. I was embarrassed. I hoped our players were embarrassed, but that's kind of me. When we don't play well, the first person I look at is myself. When my players don't play well, when my defenses in the past have not played well, I point the finger at myself first. I look in the mirror and I deflect from the players. I think when as a coach, your first instinct is to throw the players under the bus, or complain about them or point fingers. And, that was one of the things when I came in. I think, I don't think I take a lot of pride in the fact coming into that situation with the defense being what it had been the year before. I never, ever, ever watched a scrap of film, nor did I ever say a bad thing about any coach that was there before. Those weren't their players anymore. They were mine. And so, when you choose to come to a university, you inherit the scabs, you inherit the players. They were my players. They weren't their players anymore. And so we were going to win or lose together, and we were going to build that thing together. And it makes absolutely no sense to me to throw the former coaches under the bus and talk about how bad they did as a scheme or whatever they were doing, culture, this, that. We had to build our own culture on that defense. And so I really believe that. I think one time I heard Urban Meyer talk about one of his pet peeves is listening to new coaches talk about what a bad situation they inherited. Well, then don't take the job. If you don't feel like you can make a difference, don't take the job. But once you take the job, they're your players. And I really believe that. And I do think that at ECU, that's one of the things, and I think Blake's done a great job transitioning from that. I mean, I think Blake's doing a great job of moving forward and embracing the fact that it's his team and it's his players and those kind of things. And, I think it's easy to point fingers in the past and, oh, well, we got left this, we got left that, we got left that. Well, at the end of the day, I inherited Nate Harvey. I inherited, Kobe Gore and Sarge, who people didn't think could play, and they go out and have great years at corner, And so, I think there's, Bruce Bivens and, Aaron. And, we had some really, really good Alex at nose guard. Shoot, man, we had some good players. Big Jalen at 3 technique. We had I inherited some good players. So, and then our job as coaches is to try to put them in the best position you can to make them successful. And so I was very careful always about just being honest. Hey, here's where we are. This is where we're trying to get to. But I'm not going to blow smoke up your skirt and say, hey, this is, this is, I'm not going to tell you something that's not true. We knew we had a long way to go. I took the job. I had very clear, and Scotty was very clear with me when I took the job about where we were as a program and as a team. And so I went into it with, knowing what I was getting into. And I think sometimes when you embrace where you are, and I think one of the reasons we were able to have some success on defense was the fact that I didn't talk about the past with those guys. It was all about, what are we going to do? What is this team going to do? What is this defense going to do?
Coach, I was going to say, sorry, Dave. Coach, I think I've always thought that too. I've always wondered why the new coaches will come in at any school and say things negatively about the previous coaching staff. Those guys, your team, your defense that you're trying to coach, they might have liked their defensive line coach or their linebackers coach or defensive coordinator. You're bad mouthing them. It might make it harder for them to want to play for you.
Well, and it gives the players an out, in my opinion. And
that's true. That's true too.
That's one of the things I've always believed. I tell the players point blank, you got a hand in this. Listen, I went to Old Dominion. I said, the defensive coordinator's not here anymore. I didn't say it to the media. I said it to the players. One of the reasons he's not here is you. Okay? The guy's not a bad football coach. I said, let's be real. You got to play better. And that's one of the things that I was point blank coming into ECU is you got to take ownership of the fact that you have a hand in this too.
Right.
We are the worst defense in the country. Me too, because I'm here now. I'm not at Jacksonville State where we were number 3 in the nation in defense. All right. They're the number 3 ranked defense in the country. I'm here. We were 132nd. All right. And I said, and you all had a hand in that. All of you. And I said, so together we got to change that. And you don't like what people think about you or say about you, then change it. It's up to you to change it. And that's always how I've believed as a coach. That's how I am with our group right now. I think as a defensive tackle group at Missouri, we've got 7 out of 8 coming back, including, as you mentioned earlier, Chris McClellan, who is the 4th returning productivity-wise defensive tackle in the entire SEC. But if you listen to people talk about the weak link of our defense, it's our defensive tackle room. And so to me, that is a great challenge, and it's a great challenge to our players. And if they don't like when people say that, then do something about it. We got a chance to go prove it on the field, and that's the beauty of this game. We have an opportunity to go prove it on the field. It doesn't matter where you are preseason. What matters is where you are come December, and that's the beauty of college football.
Okay. You mentioned Jacksonville State. I think your 4 years you spent there, that was an incredible 4 years. You and Brandon Hall, and of course, Coach Grass, 31-0 in conference, never ranked lower than number 9. And then Brandon's now at Oklahoma as a defensive coach. And then when you were at Louisiana Tech, Joe Sloan was your OC. He's at LSU. Do you ever have any chatter with them too during game week, or you just keep it silent mode?
What's that? I'm sorry.
Okay, so before game week with LSU, with Joe Sloan and Brandon Hall, who you coach with at Jacksonville State, do y'all talk at all, or not at all?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, obviously being with Joe Joe and I were very close. He was the offensive coordinator at Louisiana Tech, and I was the defensive coordinator, so we spent a lot of time together there. And definitely talk. I saw Brandon before the game against Oklahoma this year. Obviously, Brandon was, the co-coordinator with me for 4 years at Jacksonville State. And it was one of those things where when I got hired as a coordinator there, Brandon had actually interviewed for the defensive coordinator job, and Coach Gross really liked him and really wanted to try to get him on staff. And so I was like, well, give him a co-coordinator title. And we talked beforehand. I mean, we were very open about the situation. We were going to be co-coordinators, but I was going to run the defense. I was going to call the defenses, and Brandon was a really, really good football coach and still is. I mean, he's doing a great job at Oklahoma. But yeah, I've got great friends, and that staff was, William Green's the defensive line coach at West Virginia now, that was with us on that staff. Todd Bates was my defensive line coach there the first 2 years. Then he went to Clemson, and William replaced him. Todd's at Oklahoma now with Brent Venables. We had some on that defensive staff. We had some really good coaches, and obviously had some really, really good players. But I had Brendan Lynch and Rod Wright, who were on my defensive staff there at ECU. I mean, Brandon's with the Cleveland Browns, Rod's with the Houston Texans. Derek Riley's been working for Skip with the Birmingham Stallions, has won 2 championships down there. David Mackey is at Tennessee Tech with Bobby Wilder. And so, I mean, we had a great defensive staff there at ECU. And it's fun to see that those guys have really done well. I mean, I kid around with people a lot and say, if you want to go to the NFL, you need to coach secondary from me, because Brandon Lynch from ECU is with the Browns. Grady Brown, who was my secondary coach at Old Dominions with the Saints, and then Jeff Burris was my secondary coach at Louisiana Tech. He's with the New York Giants. So, that's what I say. I can get you to the NFL as a coordinator, if you come coach secondary for me.
Coach, I had a question regarding we read the announcement, which it was surprising, but I guess you talked about earlier in the interview about when your playing career comes to an end. We read on social media yesterday that Holton Ahlers announced his retirement from football, and I was just curious, something we were going to talk about in our roundtable after the interview with you, but just wanted to get your thoughts. I know you had 1 year there with him.
Yep.
I know he was obviously quarterback on the offensive side of the ball. Quick, can you talk about Holton as a player and as a kid?
Oh, can't say enough. Number one, he didn't have to, and he stayed there, and really was the face of our recruiting. There was a big get, obviously, for Coach Montgomery, and stayed, and was a great player. And number one, a great player. Number two, a great person, but an intense competitor. I mean, just competes so hard on the practice field. Just an unbelievable person to be around. I've obviously known his dad for years. I can't say enough positive things about Holton Ahlers. I think that, unfortunately for Holton, he deserves to be every accolade he can get from East Carolina for the career he's had and the things he did for that program. Obviously I think there were times throughout his career as a quarterback where, you lose a game, something happens. It's, it's not a 10-win or 11-win season. There's always going to be people that are doubting you, that are, the most popular player on the team when things aren't always going great is the backup quarterback. And, I think Holton handled himself with so much class as a player. And I think he, obviously you're not immune to it. He grew up in Greenville. I think he knows that there were a lot of people that at times complained, and I think that his perseverance through everything and to finish the way he did at ECU and the records he holds, and, it's going to be hard on him. He's played football his whole life, and it's gone. For me, it was very sudden. He's had time to do it on his terms, which I think is always better. But, it's still not going to change the fact that there's going to come a day where he wakes up and says, I'm not a football player anymore. And that's a big part of his life, And so, I always thought he'd make a great coach. He's probably too smart to get into that. You know, I always thought he'd make a great coach just because of his leadership abilities. He was really smart, obviously very competitive, and overall a great person. And so, you know, I wish him nothing but the best. I know he'll be successful in anything he does, you know, but I think he'll miss football too going forward.
Coach, did you see? You know, obviously you were busy with the Music City Bowl, but I mean, you still, you know, obviously follow East Carolina and have a home in Greenville. I don't know if Holton has a podcast on Pirate Radio. Are you familiar with that?
I am. Yes, I get. I have followed it some, not religiously enough, but every once in a while people will send me a link and be like, "Hey, check this out."
Did you see him basically script the Military Bowl 2 days or 2 or 3 days before the game? They asked his predictions, and he said exactly the way the game was going to play out to a T. That the Pirates would jump on top early, NC State would come back, and then we would win it on a Rajay Harris late touchdown.
You know what? I did not see it per se, but I saw about it. You know, I saw people talking about it, and then you know, we were actually watching that game the night before our game. We were watching the ECU game in the hotel, and so, you know, I got a chance to see the game, a good bit of it, not all of it, but you know, it's one of those things. Back in the day, I used to say, you know, when I was in recruiting, I would tell players, you know, this is going to be your university for the rest of your life. And so, you know, and I would use the example when I was at Clemson. I said, you know, the first thing I do when I get home on Saturday nights is look and see how ECU did, see scrolling on the bottom of the screen, or you know, get the Sunday paper and find the score. Obviously nowadays with social media and things, you have a lot more access to scores, games, things like that than we've ever had before. But I absolutely, no matter what I do, I still look to see how the Pirates do.
That's awesome. How do you, as a, you know, obviously, you know, you're at Missouri now. You've been coaching for years. So when the Pirates win a big game and you have a chance to watch it, which is rare, I'm sure, to watch it, because most of the time you're coaching your own game. But how much pride do you still have when you see the Pirates beat the Wolfpack?
Oh, it's now I will admit I have had some very good friends on that coaching staff, and including Tony Gibson, defensive coordinator, who went to Marshall, and you know, I actually talked to Tony about potentially going with him to Marshall, and ultimately decided to stay at Missouri. But you know, I've got some really good friends on that coaching staff, and obviously Coach McNeil's there, who I'm very close to. But you know, that doesn't mean I'm going to pull for NC State just because I got friends there. You know, it's you know, in coaching, you're loyal to your job, obviously, first. And if I ever worked at NC State, that'd be, you know, obviously I'd cross that bridge when I came to it. But, you know, there's teams like NC State, South Carolina, North Carolina that, you know, anytime they lose, I'm not sad about it. You know, you spend 6 years at Clemson. It doesn't hurt your feelings when South Carolina loses. You know, you spend you play at ECU and NC State or North Carolina loses. I guarantee you're not crying over it. So it's, but I think it's always fun. I think for any of us that played there, coached there, went to school there, or was a part of it in some way, whether it was sitting in the stands, being a fan, watching it on TV, whatever it is, we have a reputation as a program of winning those kind of games. And going back to when I was playing, you know, Virginia Tech, you know, South Carolina, Pitt, West Virginia, Syracuse. I mean, we were a bunch of those games, you know. And, you know, it shouldn't, you know, like when we beat North Carolina when I was there, I mean, it was a tremendous win for our fan base, obviously a tremendous win for us coming off losing the horrific loss in that opener. But I think it was the norm for so long to win those games that, to me, I don't want to be surprised by it. And that's kind of, I expected to win. I expected Blake and them to go win that game last year. Like I was telling our coaching staff, I think ECU is going to win. Well, they you just went to school there. You're always going to say that, But I'm like, man, we beat those teams. We're not afraid of those teams, and that was, for them to go out and do that. Obviously, was a great bowl win. And I've been a part of a bowl win over NC State, obviously as a player.
Right.
And so it's obviously for our fan base, there's no better way to finish a season than with a win in a bowl game, especially over those guys. Now, obviously for Blake, the double-edged sword is they got to come back and play in the first game of the season this year. Which is going to be a challenge, and that's always a challenge. It doesn't matter. Openers, no matter who you're playing, are always a challenge. But I'm sure he'll be ready for it. And I'm sure the team will be ready for it.
Coach, I was going to say that there's a couple podcasts for NC State that are already predicting that East Carolina is going to beat State at Carter Finley and that Dave Doran's going to lose his job on game one. I'm like, wow, that's not me. Notice that I'm not giving bulletin board material for NC State.
No.
I'm saying
and that's one of those things. I mean, obviously Dave's been there a long time, and I think anytime you lose a bowl game the way they lost that one, and who they lost it to, figures in even more so with the fan base. They're in a different place coming off of the season last year than what we are at Missouri, where you win your bowl game, you go into the off season with a very positive feel. They lost their bowl game, and not only did they lose it, they lost it to a hated team that they don't want to consider a rival, but it is a rival. And it creates a lot of animosity, and so that's something that their program's got to deal with early in the season, is the negativity of last season. And again, the beauty of college football is they got a chance to go out and change that themselves, and as does ECU. They've got a chance to build on what they finished at the end of the season last year.
Line is currently at 11.5. It opened at 14. It's down to 11.5 for all you gamblers out there. NC State is 11.5 point favorite. Dave, Richmond, do we have any questions or comments for Coach Blackwell before we let him go from the listeners?
Yeah. I'm sorry. I was going to get to these earlier. Coach, we got two questions for you really quick.
Sure.
This is from Brandon Forbush. He says, question for David. What's your thoughts on scheduling a home and home with Missouri in the future? I doubt they would come to us, but I'm just speaking, Brandon. There at Mizzou, maybe we could get a game there.
Oh, I'm all for it. I'd love it. But it, I say that, but I'm 0-1 against ECU. Holton and those guys came up and beat us. Coach Houston's first year when I was at Old Dominion.
2019.
We actually played pretty good defense. Just they blocked a punt for a touchdown, had a couple of weird things that happened, and we ended up losing a 3-point game. So maybe I might not want that as much, but I think I wouldn't be opposed to it. It's it's geographically, I think, probably a weird fit a little bit. I'm sure a lot of ECU people would rather play South Carolina, NC State, North Carolina, Virginia Tech, regional, West Virginia. But, and again, in today's world, you never say never, because, ECU went up to Michigan, they've been, when I was there, we went out to Washington. And so,
Coach, we're about to do a bye game with Northwestern. Hasn't been announced officially, but that is about to be announced very soon.
The worst kept secret in all of ECU.
Yeah, and Dave, I got another one for you. You may not know about. There may be a bye game coming with USC.
Oh wow!
With the Trojans or South Carolina?
With Southern Cal. Though we already have games scheduled with South Carolina.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. So I thought we usually say USC with the Trojans. So.
Yep, Southern Cal. Yep.
Wow, that's interesting. All right, so we basically have two questions, Coach, about the same thing. So I'm going to pop them up to be fair to both our loyal listeners and viewers. Justin says, "What are your thoughts about SEC going to 8 or 9 games, conference games?" And Robert says the same thing. So I wanted to be fair to both of them. So Justin and Robert, you asked basically the same question for Coach.
I kind of punt on that one a little bit. It's above my pay grade. I know Coach Drinkwitz talked at length about it at the SEC Media Days, about kind of being in favor of it. But I'm one of those who's always believed that, hey, whatever the schedule is, let's tee it up and let's go. I know there's a lot of 8 games, 9 games. I do think, like when I was at Clemson, the traditional Clemson South Carolina game. You have some of those non-conference rivalry games. Florida State. We've lost the Kansas game. We play it now. We've got it this year, but I think you have a chance when you go to 9 games of losing some of those games. And I think there's a lot of people that fight that, the Florida State, the Florida, Miami, that kind of thing. And so, I know it's a discussion, we have a tough schedule, whether it's 8 or 9, it's still going to be a tough schedule. At the end of the day, we're playing Kansas. It's you still have an opportunity, I think, to schedule a tough schedule. It allows us in our league, I think, we've got a partnership coming with the Big Ten where we're playing a lot of games against Big Ten teams as crossovers. What you don't want to do, and I know Coach Saban was pushing for it. There's been a lot of talk about eliminating G5 games and playing nothing but power conference games, and I don't think that's good for college football. And so I think the more you add conference games, it eliminates opportunities to play an East Carolina or an Appalachian State, and I think that's bad for college football.
Absolutely.
No doubt. Do you guys have anything for Coach? So we're at things.
Yep.
I think we're good.
Coach, thank you so much. I know we went way long, but I told you guys when we started the podcast, even on the show, he's a guy that you could drink a beer with. I feel like we've had like a nice discussion. I don't have any beers around here, but Coach, thank you so much for everything. Appreciate your time as a player and coach, and definitely love to have you back. Certainly, whenever you're home, maybe we're doing a live show or something. We'd definitely love to have you, and definitely good luck to you this season. We'll be following you as always with the Tigers, and we'll talk to you again hopefully real soon.
All right, appreciate it. You guys have a great night.
I appreciate it, Coach.
Good luck.
Thanks, Coach.
All right, bye-bye.
So, Dave, we have some breaking news. Broke earlier.
Yeah,
I actually had this news several hours ago, and
I
kept it under wraps because of I told I would. But if you've looked over on Hoist the Colors, we have 3 players for East Carolina have been suspended: defensive end J.D. Lampley, defensive tackle Preston Carr, and wide receiver, kick returner, punt returner Brock Spalding. It involves an incident where they discharged a firearm within city limits. From what I'm understanding, it sounds like they were just having fun. There was no malicious intent. Brock has additional charges of
resisting arrest, right?
Yeah, well, he was pretty much resist and delay of obstruction of a public officer. So it could be a little bit more trouble for Brock. I don't expect this to be a prolonged suspension for Lampley or Carr, at least from what I'm understanding early. Losing 2 defensive linemen, and who knows, they're suspended indefinitely. They may not miss any game time. They may get suspended for the NC State game. Yeah. Time will tell. I don't expect it's going to be a prolonged suspension, at least for Lampley and Carr. I don't know about with Spalding with the resist charge. But from what I understand, it was not, they weren't shooting at anybody. It was just college kids being stupid. Imagine
that.
Yeah, look, hey, I could have been charged with the same thing when I was in my 20s. So I have fired off guns within city limits in Kinston, just messing around, shooting at stuff in my backyard.
That's normal in Kinston, right?
Well, not the part of Kinston I was living in, but yeah, some parts you are correct.
Oh, okay.
Where I live now, Dave, you've been to my house. I can fire all the guns I want, but
nobody will ever know.
Yeah, So
the only people that have to be scared are the only thing that has to be scared are the deer.
Exactly. So it's it's a shame. We'll really interested to see with how it's compared for Brock. We get a receiver, really good kick punt returner. We brought in the guy from Oklahoma State who was their kick return specialist, punt return specialist. So
Mike,
that'll help. That'll help if Brock has a prolonged suspension. But man, you hate to lose J.D. Lampley, in particular for any playing time.
Yeah, he's huge. And Johnny, you know that J.D. Lampley, I've always bragged about him. And then I actually got a chance to sit with Brock Spalding last year at the kickoff luncheon there at Minji's at Williams Arena. And great kid, well-spoken, articulate, which we already knew from Media Day. But, you know, J.D. Lampley, Brock Spalding, Preston Carr, those three guys right there. Johnny, you have the roster. You're closer to it than I am. But that is let's just pray that there's not more trouble coming for them. I don't know the charges. I'm not a lawyer. I have people that are. But
Lampley and Carr's charges really
Brock, I mean, I love Brock. He's from my neck of the woods. Him and Sam Danka both went to high school together in Fairfax County, which is next county over from me. So I've sat with his parents before. I root for him. I know he'll rebound from this, but I mean, I don't want to really say that we won't miss him, but he's easily replaceable more than you know, the other two, I feel.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Lampley and Carr, two good defensive linemen, particularly Lampley, and hopefully we'll have them both for NC. So we'll have them all three, but with the additional charges for Brock, you feel like his suspension is going to be longer. Yeah. But it's always something. But you know what? I'll be honest with you. I can't remember a really good ECU team that didn't have somebody get in trouble before the season started.
That's true.
Hey, so yeah, that might be. Well, at least, I will say this: they definitely need to be suspended. They definitely need to earn their way back on the team. I like you said, Kyle and Johnny. I don't think they will be off the team permanently. I think
no. And if it's what I'm hearing speculated, again, they weren't shooting at anybody. This is just, you know, I think if it wasn't for the resist charge, it would be a blip on the radar.
Right. And
I'm curious on whose idea it was and what their intent. You know, what was
I'm gonna guess it was Jack Daniels' idea.
Yeah, Jack Daniels, if you please, like David Blackwell. Yeah, you know what? I will just say this as someone who went to school there in the 90s. Thank God. I tell people this all the time. I'm happy I'm the age I am because of social media and all the attention that's much closer. Just as a regular student, I can't imagine being a person of, like, when I say interest, I mean people follow football team. I'm sorry, I slipped up. I'm talking about someone that people really notice and care about on the team. And like I said, J.D. Lampley, great guy. Brock Spalding, great guy. But look, people make mistakes, and not making light of it. They'll pay their. Let
me ask y'all a question on this. In this day and age where players are getting paid, at what point do we say, all right, we're not going to punish the fan base? Unless it's a violent crime where somebody really did something, we're not going to punish the fan base. We're not going to punish the football team. We're not going to suspend them. What we're going to do, all right. So look, I'm just throwing out numbers. Let's say J.D. Lampley was going to make $50,000 this year. JD, we're gonna fine you $5,000. You're gonna get 10% fine, or
Yeah.
At what point does that become a better punishment?
Well, I could tell you right now, Johnny, and you know this because I know that you have a home there, I believe, off the top of my head. But the rental prices in Greenville, since you remember, Kyle.
Oh my goodness.
The economic crisis we had in 2008 and 2009.
Yeah.
The rent was normal before that point. And I've had discussions with former ECU professors and students, and, it's like people our age and all that. And I'm like, I'll say the G-rated. What in the world is going on?
It's not just Greenville, it's everywhere.
No, I know it is. I'm just saying, you lose $5,000, brother. That is for somebody that's young like that. Man, that would wake my tail up if I did something like that.
Yeah. I mean, the rental prices, there are two on my street that are just absolutely absurd, like double a mortgage payment. One of them's an assistant coach for for the football team. I'm not going to say who he is, but he's paying way, way more than what I thought that house would rent for. And then the house next to him, they've turned into an Airbnb, and they're getting $300 a night, 2-night minimum. So I mean, someone's paying the money out there.
So we were talking about that. I wonder if that's the same house that was on our good friend Stephen Igo's board, the Hoist of Colors, about should I buy this house and make it as near the university and make it an Airbnb, like rent it out year round, or should I make it where it's an Airbnb where, you know, people are coming to Greenville and they're coming to baseball games and definitely football games, and especially you think about it with we need in Greenville, we need way more hotels than we have. It's been that way for years. And hey, no offense to some of them, but when people ask me, I tell the ones that I would stay in, because they always say, which one would you recommend for your family? And I tell them the ones to stay away from. And there's more of those than there are good in Greenville. And hopefully we can get more great hotels in Greenville. But the city is growing, so that's something that I'm looking forward to. Is I know that might be.
I actually had an idea, and you know, we're just having a little roundtable here before we close it out. But Dave, you know, my property, I own a couple acres, and I have a whole empty lot here that I own. I have thought about buying a tiny house, you know, fixing it up, painting it purple and gold.
You should
making the whole thing ECU themed and renting it out as an Airbnb. You know, with a real focus on football season. You know, being in between LaGrange and Snow Hill is reasonably close to Greenville, but I have seriously considered doing that.
Well, yeah, because I'm telling you guys, like you guys already know that, being that you were in Greenville a lot and for various reasons. And, you know, we do have that nice hotel, the Hilton Garden Inn, downtown Greenville. So I will say, let me give a shout out to them with the rooftop bar. So that was cool. But as far as
I'm not a big fancy hotel guy, Dave. In Annapolis, I don't remember where we stayed, but you stayed at the same place. You Marriott. That's about as fancy as I get. I literally, for the Coastal game, I originally booked the Motel 6 based on reviews on TripAdvisor. And then I was scrolling through. I was like, these reviews are BS. This is AI. Then I got to the real reviews, and it was what you would think a Motel 6 would be. Canceled that in a hurry. Still wasn't going to play a lot for a hotel. But in Myrtle, you know, you stay at the wrong place.
Johnny,
you know, so we ended up going with La Quinta because I am not going to spend a lot on a hotel. I think my favorite bad hotel story. We went. Yes, we made it. We went to Charleston for Cody Jinks concert, and I made the mistake of booking a hotel in North Charleston in the absolute hood. And let's just say, thankfully, me and my wife have lived in Kinston quite a bit because we know how to handle ourselves.
Johnny, well, here's the thing. I am also one that's frugal when it comes to, meaning that I would like to have a nicer hotel, you know, but the problem is when you pay the price that you want, that's what happens to Kyle. Like, I'm like, man, I'll pay a little bit more if I don't have to worry about, you know, like my dad would say, that's where they give you a gun when you walk in the hotel. Like
the biggest thing you really for Myrtle Beach, I think if you look at the hotels, and I'm being serious with this, if you want to save money at a hotel in Myrtle, like if you're going to the Coastal game, obviously don't stay on Ocean Boulevard anywhere cheap, but look for hotels that are 100% non-smoking. If they're 100% non-smoking and it's enforced, I mean, that's going to be your best bet to find a cheap room that's safe.
Yeah. Hey, do y'all remember when we went to Kent Narrows and we had the event? Everybody that I knew was staying at the Hilton Garden Inn, and I looked at the prices and I was like, no, I'm going to be in there, you know, just to sleep. So I got the place right across the street. I paid like $100 less. And then the next morning, I met some of the other people, and I was bragging about the breakfast, and they were all bitter because they had like an English muffin and yogurt. So, you know, there's bargains out there. You don't have to pay top dollar.
No, and somewhere like, you know, in the Annapolis area, that's not really a bad area. You can get a cheap hotel and feel relatively safe.
Right.
It's not like, you know, up there in Baltimore or North Charleston or nowadays Myrtle Beach or Durham. I stayed at a Red Roof Inn in Durham. I've stayed at some shady places. I think the worst hotel I ever stayed at in my life, that one in North Charleston was in terms of scary, but the just the absolute shitbag of a biggest hotel I've ever stayed at was in Danville, Virginia. We went up there. It was Martinsville race weekend, and ended up we weren't going to the race. We were up there for another reason. But all the hotels from Martinsville to Danville were booked up. So we had to find a hotel for the night. We found just a locally owned hotel. The hotel was so bad, the bed didn't even have a fitted sheet on it. It had a regular sheet like you would wrap up with, then a blanket on top of that. I swear to God.
Wow. I have you beat, Kyle. In New Orleans, we rented a room and there were no walls. The rooms were separated by like curtains.
Are you serious?
No, it was the worst. I mean, it was just the worst.
Sounds like planes, trains, and automobiles.
And you know what? I had to stay there because I wasn't in a position where I could leave. So yeah.
Did you know the people in the adjoining room, or were they complete strangers?
No, I had no idea who they were. I mean, I got to know a lot about them through
I bet.
But I never was formally introduced.
That's when you wish you could accidentally just luck into like two 20-year-old females sharing a room or something like that. But
yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, here's one from Justin. He says, "Mine was America's best value in Cocoa Beach, Florida. Never again. Blame that on my in-laws." Well, Justin, you'll be sleeping on the couch tonight, brother.
And I'll tell you another. I think she stayed at this hotel 3 times because it had just been remodeled in the early 2000s, and the rooms were really nice. You just didn't want to leave your room except to go to your car and go where you were going. But the Super 8 by the Greensboro Coliseum in the early 2000s, they had just remodeled it, and the rooms were super nice for Super 8. And I stayed there 3 times, and a girl tried to buy crack off me the last time I stayed there in the hallway. I don't have any crack. What do you...
Wow.
So that was that. The 3rd time was the last time.
I remember the old Johnny. You'll never appreciate this. And actually, I've seen it twice because I stayed near there. The Harrington Hotel in downtown DC.
Oh yeah. I've never stayed there. I'm familiar with it though.
It's actually I think they keep it up and everything, but it was funny because you're reading like the brochures you see.
Yeah.
And this was like we stayed there when I was 17, so it'd been 1990, and they said like they're giving all the like history of the hotel, and here's one for you. You're at an old hotel when it says Babe Ruth slept here.
Oh boy.
Tommy Dorsey performed in the
that could be cool if it was kept up. I mean, an old hotel like that could be really cool.
Yeah, I haven't been inside in years, but I don't think it's that's not.
Wasn't the elevator one of those like ones with like you had to shut it, you could see through it, and it was like the
mystique as far as like the rooms were very, very nice, like antique looking, like the check, like what I have in my house is 1935, so it had the checkerboard black and white tile, things like that. But it wasn't like a dump, like meaning like
it was historic, Dave.
Yeah, it's historic, I guess. But I also stayed in Richmond when in the 98. I'll tell this one. I got stuck on an elevator. It wasn't very long, but it was scary. Like to think that because it got stuck between floors, and it was a matter of minutes, but it felt like it was probably 7-8 minutes. But like the elevators are supposed to work, and I'm like going, okay, what are we going to do here? And eventually, I don't know how. Still to this day, I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden it started working again.
We stayed at the Outer Banks at Nags Head, Kitty Hawk. You could, in terms of, you don't really have to worry about danger. So you could do a cheap hotel, this oceanfront, this old, you're fine. And it wasn't an issue with any kind of safety. It was a cleanliness issue. Several years ago, we had stayed at this hotel once before, had a great experience, cheap old hotel on the ocean. And we walk into our room, and evidently some fishermen had stayed there the night before and cleaned fish in the room, if you can believe it. And the hotel, the room smelled like fish and fish guts. I was like, and there was not another room. They couldn't give us another room. So they They put some kind of device in there. We left the room. They put something in there that was supposed to, I don't know what you would call it. It wasn't an air purifier, but it was supposed to suck the smell
Oh
out of the
yeah,
room,
I know what
and
you're talking about.
it helped, but not completely.
Kyle, that wasn't the one in South Nags Head next to like Sam and Omi's. Is that the one you stayed in?
It's the Outer Banks Motor Lodge.
Okay, this was the Carolina Motel.
Oh
Okay.
yeah, that's a nice one. And also the Dolphin Motel, Oceanfront. That was
We've got here lately.
I haven't stayed
We
there
go to the Outer
in
Banks
years.
quite a bit. We just do the Ramada Plaza. It's older, but at least it's a chain hotel, and it's kept up pretty nice and reasonable prices. So that's what we've just started doing, that to be consistent and not have to worry about bad smells in the room.
All right, so we'll put it out there. Your worst hotel experience before we were going to wrap this thing up. But last call, we had Justin. But if there's anybody, to be fair to our listeners and viewers, by the way, good show tonight. Appreciate all the support from. We don't say that enough for our viewers and listeners. Appreciate that. But
and the next week it'll be guys. I don't know. As of right now, I'm scheduled to have surgery on Friday. I lost my. I don't want to. I'll get emotional if I talk about it much. Johnny, Dave, you know about it. I lost my baby in my lab this past Monday unexpectedly. So I've been through enough stress. I may put my surgery, hernia surgery, off the schedule for this coming Friday. But if I do have it, I probably won't be taking part in the show Sunday if the recovery is like it was for my last one. So Paul Hill, Landis will be back. Then 2 weeks from now, I'll be back along with Dave, Johnny, and Stevie and Matt Semenza should be back with us. Stevie had a family emergency he needed to attend to, and Matt is tied up in traffic. So, but 2 weeks from now, the whole football game will be back together, and we will be, guys. 2 weeks from now, we will have just been wrapped up the first week of fall practice, so there will be a lot to talk about, and then. Dave, I guess we'll have the announcement coming later this week, or whoever the guest will be for next weekend.
Yeah, I don't want to speculate because I have no idea, but I know that it'll be a great guest. And Johnny, I just want to say this before we get out of here. JR has been really good to me, and he doesn't like when we give him praise, but we're going to.
Not at all.
Thank you for my kids absolutely adore you and Tom, and y'all have both. Two people of the fan base that has not only been fans of the show, but have become friends. Y'all are not the only ones that we've been made friends with, but my kids, in fact, my daughter today, or this weekend, decided she wants to be, Kyle, they're actually adding middle school tennis for the boys and girls, first time ever in our county. So it's never happened before. And she wants to. She's going to play tennis, so that was something, a surprise. So I got her a racket today, and I'm going to work with her on.
I know a guy in Louisville that could show her a thing or two with the racket.
I thought, well, she had that in her hand. I'm a wrestling fan, so Jim Cornette is one of my all-time favorites. We've always wanted to have him on the show, Johnny, and that I told Kyle the story.
That's a bucket list guest for me.
Jim
is one of my.
I've been within 10 feet. I think I've told this story once or twice, but at the old Rose High School, which is Epps Middle School, they had the NWA. It wasn't, I called it the Great American Bash, but it was not. It was a house show.
JCP house show.
It was $10 for ringside seats, and my dad ponied them up, and it was the Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express. So the reason I'm telling this story is all of a sudden you see Jim Cornette come out with this racket, right? And it may have been staged. I pray it wasn't. But this old lady with a big pocketbook just nailed him.
It was not staged. There is no such thing as a stunt granny. Never has been, never will be. Cornette was hated. He had heat in Jim Crockett Promotions, NWA in the 80s. That old woman that hit him with the purse was a legit shoot, I'm sure.
He was so shocked he didn't know what to do. He just kept walking.
Cornette was used to it. If it would have been a man, it would have probably been different. But an old woman, Corny wasn't going to respond to that. It's funny, Dave, your first wrestling show, you saw the Midnight Express in the main event. So did I.
Really?
In Little Washington. NWA Jim Crockett Promotions, Little Washington. The high school there, the main event in 1988 was Midnight versus Midnight. Jim Cornette managing Stan Lane and Beautiful Bobby taking on the returning Dennis Condrey with his tag team partner at the time, whose name escapes me right now, Randy Rose, with Paul E. Dangerously, Paul Heyman as their manager.
Oh my God, that old cell phone.
Yes, correct. The giant old cell phone, correct. That was the main event that night. So we both
Johnny,
saw our first wrestling match in person. We both saw Cornette in the midnight, and to this day, Cornette is one of my heroes. And if you ever hear me, you hate to spoil stuff for people, but if you ever hear me on one of my famous pirate radio rants, or just a rant on here when I'm just really cutting loose, mad about something during football season, a lot of my material is stolen from Jim Cornette. I'm a huge fan of his podcast to this day. So if you ever hear me say things like "Guess who won the pony," and I can't say really, I'm not gonna say this on the air because I'm not mad right now, but French fried, blankety blank, all that stuff I've stole from Jim Cornette.
Hey Johnny, are you a wrestling fan at all, or back in the day?
You know what? I've become a bigger wrestling fan since I've been around Kyle and Stevie, both of them, and Matt. So I feel like, yeah, I know it. I know enough, but not as much to have a deep conversation with these guys. But I'm learning more. I've always watched it.
Johnny, the thing I love, about wrestling, and particularly old wrestling, is the personalities and the talking, the promos. I mean, just
yes, that's
some of the greatest talkers ever in any genre of life, or from wrestling, particularly old wrestling, from Ric Flair to Dusty Rhodes to Jim Cornette to more modern Steve Austin, CM Punk. I mean, nobody can talk like these guys, and a lot of it's off the top of their head. They're given the best guys. The stuff isn't scripted for them. It's, hey, you need to say this, this, and this, and then they'll go out and put it in their own words. And to be able to do that in front of crowds live, and that's why there's been so much transition over the years, success from wrestlers getting into acting, because a lot of it is athleticism, but a lot of it is having the ability to think on the fly, talk. Not so much be a character, but be a more the best wrestling characters are enhanced versions of themselves.
Correct. Like when
I just read an article about Chief Sunoco. Have you ever heard of him?
Chief Sunoco?
Yeah, he's from, I want to say it could possibly be the 20s or 30s. He's a Cherokee Indian chief that he's a real chief, and he's from Cherokee, North Carolina.
Okay.
But anyhow, he was in. It was a story about how he had done very, very well for himself. Had been in Madison Square Garden countless times, and how he's the one that really got them on track to get situated where now they're reaping the rewards of the casino, and it's just he's a legend among the Cherokee. But I had never heard of him before. But
I've never heard of Chief Sunoco by that.
Check him out. Look him up.
I'll look that up.
I know
20s and 30s. That's a long time ago.
Yeah. I my wrestling knowledge is probably 70s on, middle to late 70s, because
Johnny Weaver and people like that.
Roddy Piper.
How about Haystack Calhoun?
Yeah, Haystacks was obviously a huge star in the 60s and 70s.
Greg Valentine.
You're getting into more 80s guys now, Dave. But
late 70s, he was there, I believe, 70.
Yeah, Valentine was. He was Mid-Atlantic.
Ricky Steamboat is my all-time favorite.
Yeah, Steamboat was fantastic.
Not only his talking, his look, just everything about
Steamboat's promos were very middle of the road, but his look, great worker, one of the best workers, just tons of believability. You believed what he did. He also, in Johnny's wrestling terms, called selling. It's when somebody does something to you. The biggest thing when somebody hits a move, one of the biggest things when you're watching wrestling is how the other person registers it, and it's called selling.
Yeah.
And if Ric Flair, hits Ricky Steamboat with a chop, and Ricky just stands there, that chop looks like crap. So Ricky Steamboat was one of the best at selling in the business, along with Ricky Morton.
Okay.
In fact, Vern Gagne is where both Ric Flair and Ricky Steamboat went to the same school of wrestling.
Yeah, Iron Sheik, a whole bunch of guys broke in the 70s together with Vern. There was a whole, just that one class you're talking about.
Yeah, there's a lot of great ones. Hall of
Yeah.
Famers. I mean, Johnny, they were talking about Ricky Steamboat talks about how literally they had a fireman carry. They had to carry dudes up and down flights of stairs. I
Yeah,
forgot.
back then they didn't make you
God.
smart. When you first started, and we'll get off this and close it out, but when you first broke in and you were being trained, they didn't smarten you up. That was in the days of kayfabe, as they call it in wrestling, where they made everybody believe it was real. And so when you first broke into wrestling and you were being trained, you were an athlete, and if you didn't already have previous knowledge, they built you up. They tried to make you quit. They wanted to make
Kind of
sure
like the
that you
military.
really wanted to do it.
Like a boot
And,
camp.
and then they would smarten you up. Hey, now that we've broke your leg, like Hulk Hogan, when Hogan first got into it, the guy that was training him intentionally broke his leg. And there was tons of stories like that. And then once they realized the guys who were genuinely tough, at least back in the day, genuinely tough, genuinely good athletes, then they would smarten them up and say, hey, look, this is a work. Now it's all a work, and everybody knows it's a work, and all the magic is gone. But back in the day, yeah, the guys like Ricky Steamboat, they put them through hell to make sure they could, handle it.
Yeah.
And then they would smarten them up, because in those days, particularly if you were a bad guy, heel, you better be able to handle yourself, because you didn't have to worry about the other guy across from you in the ring really trying to hurt you. It was the fans.
Yeah. Yeah. And even the good guys may get in the crossfire.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, what would happen with them is, in wrestling fans, groupies are called rats. So you'd have a lot of baby faces, in territories that day. So it was Jim Crockett Promotions, and going from Greensboro to Greenville, South Carolina to Richmond, Virginia, they'd have a girl in every town, and the baby faces suddenly had a boyfriend knock on the bedroom door of a hotel, and that was what they had to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah. John White is texting. He said, "Man, I'm old. Dusty Rhodes and Jimmy Superfly Snuka were my first."
Oh yeah.
Dusty Rhodes, obviously one of the best ever. One of the best. You talk about guys on the mic, Johnny. Good God, Dusty Rhodes, the Bullet of the Woods, baby. Dusty. I'll go into some Dusty stuff sometimes too. Dusty was a great promo.
And
then Snuka, Jimmy Snuka, not couldn't talk to save his life, but. Yeah, Freight Train, Rufus Jones. Yep. But Snuka, what a body, what an athlete. When he jumped off the top of the cage in Madison Square Garden onto Don Morocco in the early '80s, that was revolutionary.
Wow. Yeah.
Unfortunately, Snuka's career is tarnished because
he killed
he committed a murder in the early '80s that he got away with, and it was through DNA found out that he had murdered this woman in the early '80s, and he was about to go into hospice care when it was found out, so he never went to trial for it. They determined he wasn't well enough to go to trial. He died about a month after that from stomach cancer. But so that really has tarnished Jimmy Snuka's legacy. But great talent in the ring.
Yeah, and by the way, our good friend Pirate Al, he was married by Ivan Koloff, if you remember that. So,
oh wow, yeah.
So that I'm a big fan of Pirate Al. Pirate Al is not only a great guy, but a great pirate, and it's fun to.
Huge wrestling fan.
Yeah, he put me in the Cobra Clutch at Clark LeClaire, so we have a picture of that. Sergeant Slaughter style.
Did you tap out?
Well, if you see how big Pirate Al is, yeah.
Well, you still have Hey, look, you always remember, if somebody puts you in the Cobra Clutch and they got it locked in, Dave, the best way to break it, take your foot, lift it up, kick them in the balls.
Yeah, I'm going to do that to Pirate Al.
Well, if it's a work, no. If it's a shoot, yeah.
No, it wasn't the real deal. So we were just having fun. It was a good picture. I think Bubba took that picture a few years ago. But anyway, Johnny, thank you again for everything you're doing for the show behind the scenes. We're working on media.
Hey, before we go, I want to reciprocate your kind words. For anybody that is not aware, at the Yard Gnomes game last night, Dave threw out the first pitch, and it was a perfect strike.
Well, I'm glad you like that. I literally, the guy texted me and said, basically what happened is they thought they were going to have someone to do they basically get, as you guys know, they give a football like at Dowdy Ficklin for,
Dave was the fill-in.
Yeah. Like they didn't have anybody. So he's like, will you help me out? And I'm like, of course. And I'm going, I've never done this before. But the good news is I said, I'm not going to try to rifle it in because it'll probably go like Wild Thing, like Rick, was it Rick Vaughn from Major League, Charlie Sheen's character. So I said, I'm just going to like toss it, and it might be 25 miles an hour, but at least it won't be going here, there, and everywhere. I'll have more control.
You didn't do a Rob Dibble leg kick or nothing like that?
No, I just said, you know what? I'm going to keep it as simple as possible. If it's embarrassing, I'm going to be walking off the field, and nobody knows who the hell I am anyway. So
I want to say quickly as we wrap this up, thanks for everybody that that may be watching that said kind of words to me this week with the loss of my baby Nikki, my dog. Johnny, particularly your text to me personally. We won't get into the details of it here on air, and this is not blowing smoke up your ass. Of anybody who said anything to me, and there was a lot of people, friends and family. Your text to me about what you had experienced with your dog and some of the other things you said really helped me quite a bit, genuinely, more than what a lot of other people that I'm close to said to me. So I really appreciate that.
It's my pleasure, Kyle. That makes me feel just I'm overwhelmed actually right now.
Well, guys,
hey, hold on, Dave.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, getting back to your, I'm gonna make this short, but the funniest thing we got to tell everybody that before you threw the first pitch, what did you ask them? Can I warm up in the bullpen?
Yeah, I did.
It was hilarious.
I said that, but I was like, he laughed. He thought it was funny. I was like, he said, yeah, you could go over there like the home side of the bullpen, but I didn't know what to. We were walking to from the first base side to, I had to go to the third base side to with a promotions person, and I asked him that. He thought it was really funny. So hey, by the way, let me say this really quick. All my Greenville friends, let's all support that team. They've done a really good job with that field.
No, don't go to those games. Go to the Bird Dogs games.
Yes.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying that the end of the season's getting ready to end, and we have a whole month or two of we have another month of Bird Dogs. So go to the
support them both. I'm blowing smoke here. There's room for plenty of the CPL has expanded so much. They do not need to expand anymore, in my opinion. But support them both. Support the Yard Gnomes. Support the Bird Dogs both.
Yeah. So maybe we can have some more Pirates on the team. They were supposed to get 4, but they'll have Brandon Burris was supposed to be on the team. But I think he's going to be. Hopefully, he'll be back next year. As far as the Yard Gnomes are concerned, of course, he's going to be back with ECU. But anyway, it was a great time, great organization, and they're coming on in a few weeks. We'll talk about their season and trying to get everybody. By the way, Johnny, here's a fun fact for you. You're the stats guy, but fun fact. Do you know the name of the mascot
for the Yard Gnomes?
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of that moniker, first of all. So
I'm not either.
I know.
Nomi the Gnome.
Probably something that I would not approve of, or I will not approve of.
I was going with Nomi just off, but it's actually Nomeo. Instead of Romeo, it's Nomeo.
Okay. Well, you know what? They did pretty well with what they had to work with. I'll give them that.
Yeah.
So, you think we could get some jungle guys together to start going to the Bird Dogs games to help with the atmosphere?
Yeah,
that would do it. Are megaphones allowed there?
You know what? All you can do is take them in and find out. I think make homemade ones. Roll paper up. I mean, I was thinking about the other day. Could we get the jungle guys in here and
that would be awesome.
Particularly get Danny Bill up on the mound, and it's a fun atmosphere, but it needs to be a little rowdier.
Yeah. Sell more beer, I guess. I remember those days of Thirsty Thursday at Kids.
Yeah, it's back. They have Thirsty Thursday, $2 beers, $2 limited domestics on Thursday nights.
Johnny, hey, I'll be down there next week, Kyle. If they have a home game, I'll buy you a beer.
They have 3 midweek games next week. No weekend games. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday series.
I'll be there Thursday.
If I don't have surgery this Friday, I'll be recovering the following week if I do. But if I don't have surgery, I will see you out there for Thirsty Thursday.
All right. Good deal.
Sounds good, guys. Thanks for everybody watching tonight, listening. Yeah, we went a little bit longer, but thought it was a great show. And Johnny Stats is the best and brings a lot to the show. Missed Stevie And Matt's still stuck in traffic, I'm sure, but you'll get home, dude, one day, maybe tomorrow afternoon, up at that place. But anyway, we'll see you guys next Sunday night at 8:00. If it's Sunday night, it is the Sports Objective. Good night, everybody, and go Pirates.
You're watching the Sports Objective, the podcast for Pirates.